now, I know, let me just put, for those who out there who normally listen to Spreaker and go on the live link, Belinda, I know that you're out there listening to the Blog Talk Player because I just posted on your page. You can now go to Spreaker and get on the live link as you always do. And Belinda, of course, you know, you and Deb and Dave, you guys utilize a lot. So Spreaker.com is back up. Aaron just called in and was wondering about it. So it is up live. We're on the air on Spreaker as well. Dave Lamont, you have a great way of putting out information, whether it's on your blog, whether it's on your YouTube, whether it's on Facebook, whether it's on Twitter, whatever the case may be. For Dave Lamont, Screens from the Center, how do you utilize all of those social media outlets to be more informative to the people that actually follow you with your live broadcasts and things like that? By the way, Dave is from Colorado. Dave, tell us how you can advise people to become more savvy, or more of a savvy user, or more of a better user with regards to social media, because it can be very, very tricky. And I'll go off into that a little bit later. But Dave Lamont, talk to us.
Well, I'm by far no expert either. I'm just kind of tootling along like everybody else. But typically how I learn a lot of these kinds of things is I will go ahead and basically observe for a while and try to get a feel as to how other people are utilizing this stuff first. And then I kind of take my hand and try my hand at it as well. But there are plenty of books and information sources that are out there, both free and ones that you can purchase that are great helps on that kind of stuff as well. So I highly encourage people to just get their feet wet. Just go out there, and if you make mistakes, you know, whether you make a mistake or not, it is the internet, so people will react the same way no matter what. So, you know, I think the biggest thing is to learn how to have a thick skin and to be challenged on things. Whether you're being challenged from a perspective of intelligence or a perspective of ignorance. I often get in arguments of ignorance where the person is just certain that they are absolutely right when I post information, links to sources, even, you know, scientific papers that prove my point. So basically just have a thick skin, don't worry about what other people say, do what's comfortable for you, learn the way things go, and eventually you'll be fine.
So Dave, speaking of what you just said, it appears that the scientific information that you referred to, Nikki talked about Mother Jones and some of those other places. Do you feel that those who follow the mainstream media, they look at this third-party information much like they look at a third-party political campaign brewing up? Let's say we've always had Democrat and Republican. Do you think they look at this information as being null and void, and since it's not coming from mainstream media, then it's from Mars or something like that?
Yeah, I think a lot of times people do that. Unfortunately, there are some sites that are questionable. So you have to do your best to try and wade through the countless propaganda versus information that's out there. And, you're going to get accused of your source being either, depending on what you're arguing from, left or right. It's going to be called a blog, even if it's citing information. So, you just have to do your best to try and present what you think is the correct fact, and just be ready to admit if you did something wrong, if you posted incorrect information. I've done that a few times, and I've had to fess up to it, so it happens.
Right. But Dave, as well as I do, and I'm going to take this to Nikki. I watch you guys post and page almost daily, because I like to see the interaction. I know Aaron, especially Vanessa, posting a lot. So when I look at you guys' page, and I see all of this information that you're sharing, and then we look at somebody from the right, let's say a conservative who may be, a center right, a far right. It appears that, like you said, Dave, once that ignorance kicks in, then it's almost impossible to get them to see that there's another side of reality, which is facts, which are facts, and they refuse to accept that. Nikki, when you're dealing with those situations, how do you control yourself? Because I know that sometimes we lose it. We all do. I know I do. So, and what we're trying to do tonight is, since the media is so important, since the media controls about everything that we hear and see, since 90% of mainstream media is controlled by the 6 corporations, we alluded to those corporations the other night, how can we get these new beginners to come on and join this? Because I consider this to be a part of the movement, the revolution, or whatever you want to call it, because we're giving out factual information that people can actually use, utilize, and learn from. So, Nick, how do you balance the difference between dealing with somebody who's ignorant because they refuse to accept what reality is, or those who just plain out, I'll use the words, racist, bigots, or whatever the case may be?
I think in the beginning, I really tried to be factual. I had one post, and I got tired of the Irish slave argument, I'd really gotten tired of that. So I gave a historical, it was accurate, it's based in fact, and I posted it. And I got a lot of thank yous for it, But then I got the other ones. And I try to, in the beginning, I really do. I endeavor to try to educate in that sense when I know that factually I'm so correct. Try to get someone to see another side. And you're really not often successful, okay? And then I'll lose patience. And I'll either stop, or I've said to someone, I'll lose patience, and I'm going to tell you what I really think. But there's a certain point you cannot argue with ignorance. Mm-hmm. Or blockheadedness, and particularly with racism. You hit that stone wall, and there's nothing. There's nowhere you're going. But every once in a while, you really can really engage someone in a discussion. And I think if the aim on those posts or is to, I kind of believe in trying to change people one at a time. So that's the desire I have when I engage someone that's of a different thinking than myself.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Deb, we're out there on the live chat line now, talking about a portion of the bill that your governor chose to veto. Since we're talking about media, since we are a part of that particular genre that's out there, tell us, Deb, from your state, Missouri, specifically what happened today with regards to the veto by your particular governor.
Well, since you mentioned it, I had just kind of heard it in passing. Actually, I wasn't aware. I've heard some of the other stuff going on in passing, but this one I wasn't aware of. That apparently they vetoed a gun law that proposal to really extremely loosen gun laws here in Missouri. Thank goodness Jay Nixon stepped in and put his foot down on that one, because part of that was to allow people just to conceal and carry willy-nilly without a permit. Can you imagine that? Mm-hmm. Without a permit. That's just insanity. Mm-hmm. Missouri has turned very red, and we've had a lot of things come about with this Republican House that we have right now that we are trying to fight. Another one that they are doing is they are shutting down abortion clinics like they did in Texas. We have this problem. I was on a protest at the MU, University of Missouri, recently against one of our Republican people here, and they're just overstepping their boundaries with everything, and we've got to get them shut down. But I'm glad that Jay Nixon stepped in. Problem is, he is about to go out of office, and we have some really nasty critters trying to run for office right now here on the Republican ticket. We've got Jason Kandar that's running, let's see, we've got Chris Koster that's trying to run on the Democratic ticket, and he's actually been endorsed by Elizabeth Warren. So we're trying to get him into office to take Jay Nixon's place. This was the best thing that could have happened in Missouri.
Right.
I mean, this should have never even made it to the table. Never made it to the table, let alone come to a point where we had to veto it.
And
now,
go ahead, Deb.
I'm still researching the rest of it, so I'll fill you in on the post as I find out more.
Okay, yeah. I basically, looked at it this morning. It goes back to, I know, Dave Lamont, you remember Vanessa, you specifically, out in the Texas area when Wendy Davis had that very challenging filibuster. So when you look at what happened with the Supreme Court's ruling today relative to the state of Texas, it appears that Wendy Davis gets a victory, gets a win in her column, because this was what she was debating on, talking about, in the Senate when she was there just recently before she ran for governor. Now, Dave Lamont, I know that I watch you on social media, especially with your friend, your longtime friend, or whatever the case may be, that you had to actually delete, and you made a comical post about that. I noticed, Dave, you can always hold your composure. So when you are out there posting, and when people refuse to accept the scientific information that you are using, your scientific information that you are using to corroborate your story, which is to validate your story, how do you maintain your composure, Dave? Because what you don't want to do is turn either your followers away from you, or turn people off from even paying attention to your message. And so, Dave, how do you be so forthcoming and successful with doing that, Dave Lamont?
Well, I don't think that I do all that good a job, to be honest. I think I do lose my cool every now and then. I sometimes just have to say enough's enough and cut off the people who are doing, who are just traveling in circles. But what I try to do my best on is to keep it limited to where they're starting to overly repeat themselves and being insultive and rude. And sure, I lose my temper. I'm human. It's what we do. But I think if I maintain myself at least in an intellectually correct position, then the rest of it comes together for the most part.
Well, if you guys out there, you want to go in the live chat on Spreaker.com, Deb is posting information out there. I have a question that was submitted to us by a Facebook listener. Vanessa, I'm going to start with you, and I'm going to go to Deb, then I'm going to go to Nikki, then I'm going to go back to Dave. Okay, the question is this, Vanessa. Does anyone have any ideas on how to be creative enough to get those who don't want to learn? Is there a way to resonate with those people?
That's hard.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, Vanessa, I know coming from your background, your sister being a producer, I know you want to have a little bit more time. So what I'll do is I'll give you time to think about it. Let me go to Deb, and I'll come back to you, Vanessa. Deb, the question is this. Does anyone have any ideas on how to be creative enough to get those who don't want to learn? Okay, is there a way to resonate with those types of people?
I'm agreeing with Vanessa. It is hard.
Okay. I'll tell you what.
The thing is you just have to be persistent in your endeavors. You have to, the best way to do this is to show that to prove to them. You just have to put the real information out there to prove to them.
Okay.
And if you have to get it from multiple sources, get it from multiple sources. But you have to be persistent in it.
Right, Dave.
And
Dave. Dave Lamont has said that he's actually used factual information, scientific information, whatever it was that he could use to validate. And nevertheless, those people's minds are made up. So how do you crack that glass ceiling to make an uninformed listener become informed? Look at those people that's out there now who say that Donald Trump could go in the streets and shoot somebody and they still would vote for him. You kind of follow what I'm saying?
I do. Mm-hmm. You know, and honestly, I have listened to Dave's broadcast, and I've heard that happen. I have heard him, bless his heart, I have heard him battle with logic and everything else, and it just appalls me how this person is a particular person just negates everything, and with no backing. I mean, he just chooses to negate it. And when it comes to people like that, I'm not sure that I'm just not convinced that there's anything creative or otherwise that you could do unless they just fall into the trap of what has been created by it. You know, they're going to have to suffer from some type of. They're probably going to end up having to suffer from some type of issue from it, or an indignity from it before it really slaps them in the face and brings them around. Mm-hmm. People are just like that.
Okay.
Honestly, I tend to walk away from the ones. I mean, you can read that, and I admit I do have a tendency to walk away from those because I think there's. For all the time I waste on one person like that, there's probably 5 others I can do and read.
So it becomes counterproductive, is what you're saying.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
At a point, it does.
Okay. Nikki, let me bring this question to you. Okay. The question was asked by a listener that's out there, submitted. Does anyone have any ideas on how to be creative enough to get those who don't want to learn? Is there a way to resonate with those types of people? Nikki Bedford.
I think the operative phrase here is if someone doesn't want to learn, they're not under to learn. I think oftentimes people come on. I remember I was on Michelle Alexander's page, and she had posted something, and you know, when you're on Miss Alexander's page, I mean, people are sharing the same viewpoint. Mm-hmm. And someone came on the page and wanted to refute everything that was going on. And I remember, and I watched a few posts, and then I simply said, "You're on the wrong page. You know, if you want to take that issue somewhere else, I'm sure there's some other page that will listen to you, but you don't belong here." But I think when someone doesn't want to learn, I think so many people, will come, particularly when it's a controversial subject, will come on just to, like Dave's, I think it was Jody or whatever the name was, come on just to bait. I'm not saying to debate, I'm saying to bait. Mm-hmm. And I think you can never pick up that bait. If someone, when someone responds to something, I'll read it through a couple of times. Let me see if there's a question in there. And you can generally tell by the post exactly what they're looking for, If there is an opening, I think we should all go for it, Mm-hmm. But if there's no opening, you cannot teach someone that doesn't want to learn.
Right. Because again, we're talking about tonight's topic, the media part 2, and the media's job is to be informative. The media's job is to tell the truth. The media's job is to be balanced and not be one side or the other. I got another question that was submitted, Dave. I'm going to shoot it to you, and then I'll go back. Well, let me go back to Vanessa. Vanessa, are you ready to chime in on that question that was asked? That I know it was kind of hard to shoot at you first, but nevertheless, I had to start somewhere. You ready to take a shot at it?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
The first thing is, you kind of have to look at life, period.
when you're raised a certain way to believe a certain thing, you carry that with you to your adulthood. You carry it to your grave. It's like churches, like Baptist people, the Church of Christ, and Presbyterians, and I mean, all these people go to church, but they all at odds with each other about what the Bible says. And it's like when I worked at Q I was a manager, store manager, and this guy came in one day. It's like the man and the female thing. He didn't listen to anything that I told him when I suggested that, you know, he get something done to his 4-wheel drive, and we did transfer cases and rear differentials and your front differentials and blah, blah, blah. And I told him about, you know, what happens to your vehicle when you don't get them started. So he told me, no, that's okay. So my male manager stepped out. He talked to the guy, told him everything that I told him verbatim. And do you know that he said, oh, okay. See, that's how people are. When you train to believe a certain way and your brain is functioning that way and you don't want to learn anything different. So he didn't believe that a woman knew anything about a car. But he figured God knew because he was a man, but I was a female. So this is go through when you try to make people, you know, just think in another direction, think outside the box. Oh, yeah, it is possible for a female to know something about a car. I had been, you know, with the company for over 6 years. So it's like that every day. It's like a male thing, or racist, not racist thing, or black-white thing, and a religious, because when you talk something, you just take it with you. And it's hard. It's just like cooking. You know, nobody can teach you how to cook. But they'll teach you how to cook, especially somebody that doesn't know how to cook. So it's like that. I mean, it's kind of like you have to just, like Deb was saying, you have to be persistent. Either be persistent, and if they do come around, you know, that's a good thing. And if they don't come around, just leave them alone.
Okay. I got another question that was submitted from a listener. Dave Lamont, I think you kind of talked about this tonight. We're talking about the media part two. We're going to open up the lines. If there's anybody else out there, we're going to bring them in. Dave Lamont, is it appropriate to use factual information and add humor, polls, etc., to validate or to at least try to calm down the opposition, which may be inclusive of ignorance or whatever the case may be? Dave Lamont, what do you think?
Well, I think you first have to ask yourself the question of what kind of perspective are you going to take? Are you going to be someone who uses sarcasm, levity, and things like that to make a point? Or are you going to be someone who wants to be very stoic and logical? Once you've decided which of those kinds of directions or combination you're going to go, then I would say if you're leaning towards the more sarcastic and upbeat, witty kind of notion, then everything's on the table in reality. So you can be kind of crass and condescending and get away with it if you're basically being a Bill Maher kind of intellectual versus a Neil deGrasse Tyson kind of intellectual.
Okay. Aaron Hopkins is now joining us. Aaron is out there in the state of Texas by way of Dallas. We got Vanessa Gazi on the line by way of Houston, Texas. We got Nikki Bedrick on the line by the way of Nevada, Las Vegas. Dave Lamont, Colorado, and Debbie Dilks out of Missouri. I'm not sure where Paul is at. We got Belinda out there on the line, chat line, and I forget what great state she's from, but I'll get that information out. Let me kind of switch gears. We know that now this is a contested presidential race with some say two candidates that no one wants to vote for. On the Republican side, we have Donald Trump, and on the Democratic side, we have Hillary Clinton. And some have said that the media purposely shut out and or blacked out Bernie Sanders from getting name recognition and getting some airtime. I think it was either Dave Lamont or Nikki on Thursday night show who indicated that Donald Trump has gotten about is either $2 million or $2 billion dollars of free advertising. So when we talk about this thing called the media, the media can either be positive or negative. The media can either feed you good food or it can feed you bad food. So if we look at 2016 and we take Fox News, we take MSNBC, we take CNN, and let's look at ABC, NBC, and CBS. If we look at those 6 affiliates, Dave Lamont, do you feel that they are doing more of a disservice to provide the truth to the average voter and or average listener, or they're doing a disservice to the average voter and or average listener?
Well, like we were talking about before, Donald Trump has got the equivalent of $2 billion, that's with the B, in free advertising just for being a candidate. And some of the big perpetrators of that crime have been the, quote, liberal network, MSNBC, who can't do without having any kind of Trumpathon. So, yeah, I think that they're doing us a great disservice. Another case that I'd like to point out is in my state of Colorado. In the last election, the 2014 election, we had Senator Cory Gardner running for the Senate. He went on NPR, another one of those so-called liberal bastions, where the presenter was characterizing Cory Gardner as a moderate. So, you know, we can't sit here and think that the media is not committing their own, trying to be their own kingmakers. There's an old saying about, the media is supposed to report the news, not make it. Well, I don't think they do that anymore. I think they actually go out of their way to make the news now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Nikki, let me bring this to you. Do you feel that since Trump was a major player when it comes to ratings for Fox, CBS, MSN, and all those other ones, since he was bringing in all of those dollars, and now it appears that there's some backlash from some of those who created this monster that's out there now. Do you feel that that disservice could ultimately cost the American people to receive, by way of voting, the worst candidate in the history of the presidential election, in my opinion?
Oh, absolutely, Baron. I was visiting a friend last week, and I don't watch news. I don't watch regular television. And so I was in about 3 different homes. And, during the course of that week, the home that I was staying in, the television was on all the time. Elderly man, I think it was more for background. I was so saturated by Trump last week. His visit to Scotland, his this, his that. He's got the most unfavorable ratings, and he's still getting press time. He's still all over the television. I mean, no matter his, I understand he's dropping at the polls, his campaign is in disarray. It doesn't matter. They keep reporting him. It's incredible. Yes, I absolutely think so. I think that the all objectivity of the press is gone. I think it's ratings. I came across something today that was print newspaper that was kind of interesting. So in April, in the New York primary, so capital New York State's up in Albany, way up north of the state, and there's a paper there called the Times-Union. Okay, it has circulation of 66,000 daily during the week, 128,000 on a Sunday. Okay, it endorsed Hillary. Bernie won that area. Okay, Bernie won it by he beat Hillary by 7%. He got 7 of there were 7 delegates. Bernie got 4 of them. Okay. The article I was reading today said this was a newspaper green. A David Goliath story. Bernie wasn't supposed to win. The newspaper never reported Bernie's win. It was in their area. It was Albany and Schenectady and all the surrounding states. Never reported it. Not one word in their local newspaper. And when he now went on to win the outline, she did heavily. Now, she was a senator from New York. Okay, this is in the state capital. When he went on to, she did well in the metropolitan area in New York. He did well all around the state. Okay, they still wouldn't report it. And their headline after it was all over, they simply said that Bernie Sanders did well. And the article left the readers once again with the impression that Hillary had been victorious.
Mm-hmm.
This was the People's newspaper. They wouldn't even report him that way. So the impression was to the average Joe Blow was that Hillary had won the state.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Nikki, when go ahead, Dave. Go ahead.
Aaron, I'd just like to add
go ahead.
quick thing that's kind of related to that point. How many of you have heard that Hillary Clinton lost 19 superdelegates to Bernie Sanders? There you go. That goes.
Right.
But another one, I just questioned. Dave, I just questioned somebody that calls himself politically savvy, asking them about the March on Washington from Philadelphia to Washington, and 1,400 people arrested. They looked at me like what? The press didn't report it.
So, and Dave, you are exactly right. And there's been some super delegates to flip. There's been some counties to flip in California. So all of those people who are saying that Bernie is out, should drop out. Why should he drop out when those who you have invested trust in, mainstream media, Fox News, MSNBC, CNN, ABC, CBS, and NBC, because most people are listening to those outlets. And if those outlets are controlling the message that you hear, that you see, and once again, we know that mainstream media's number one goal is to distort the message and divide the people. Okay, so if we know those two attributes exist, then what is it that you guys can do? What is it that we can do? What is it that others can do to bring to the forefront, to switch gears and say, okay, there are some other outlets that are out there who are trying to do the very thing that journalists should be doing, which is working to make sure that they provide information that is forthcoming to the American people. So if we fast forward now to 2016, Vanessa, do you feel that if you had to give one way or the other, good or bad, do you feel that the media is doing a good job or a bad job providing information to the American people?
Oh, no. Bad. Most definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Because even local news can't be trusted. My brother lives when he was living in Tennessee, and this was just last year, there was a young guy on the street. He lived in a predominantly white neighborhood, and he took walks all the time. So he was walking this particular day, and he ran across some yellow tape all around his house, and two police officers walked up on him and asked him where was he going. And he lives in a cul-de-sac, so he lived at the other end of the cul-de-sac, and he told them, he said, well, I live here. And they said, well, can we see your ID? And he said, for what? And he asked him, what happened? And so he ended up giving them his ID, and they told him that someone in the house they used the word dissolved. And he said, dissolve? What do you mean dissolve? So what it was a young teenage boy that he knew, a very reckless young teenage boy. And he had killed his mother, his father, and another person in the house. So he went home and he waited to hear it on the news. He said there was no news truck out there. There was only the police and the tape. And he said, waited and waited. You know, it never came on the news. It was never in the newspaper. And this is the kind of stuff that your media does.
Mm-hmm.
It hides things. These people were hurt. So do you really think that if they had been another color, it wouldn't have been in the paper?
Mm-hmm.
It would have been in the news? So if they do this at a local level, because even when I worked at it was the oil change place, when I worked there in February, we were told not to speak to people. Like reporters would come in, and they told us, we had to sign paperwork saying that we couldn't talk to the media because February was sweep month, which meant that anything that was going on wrong in that company, they were going to put it on the news.
Mm-hmm.
So we had to be quiet. So the media plays a tremendous part in what you get and what's out there. So that's why, the media is bad.
Okay.
It is.
Right. Now, I believe it was Aaron Hopkins. You are out there. Aaron, you talked about this digital age that we're dealing with. And we alluded to, we actually dissected the concept that if we're dealing with this digital age and many people are still not graduating high school, we have some that are walking across the stage that are receiving a diploma but have not received that quality education. So Aaron Hopkins, when we talk about this media in 2016 part 2, how do you make an observation regarding the media, and how do you prepare your young son who is now going to college and those who you come in contact with on a daily basis? How do you prepare them to be able to discern good media information versus negative media information, particular since we're dealing with this digital age? Aaron Hopkins.
Yeah, Baron, it's a daily struggle to try to detach from the reports that most of us know are, less than truthful, and some are, in my judgment, some are used to take the kind of deflect from other important things that are going on. Nikki just gave an example of things that should be reported that go totally unreported. So in terms of trying to help my son and friends and family discern from the things that are seen and found in the media, it's a struggle. And part of that is our own desire to engage in things that are, to me, worth. We had talked about before some of the programming that you find on television, especially primetime television. And it's hard to find something worth watching that you actually are going to learn from.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you read a question. I heard a part of the question that you read, Darren. And in dealing with people who are trying to, I guess, attract others to learn or find out other valuable information, in my mind, I was thinking about that question. If a person is not willing to learn, then it's really nothing you and I or anybody on this line can really do to get them to want to learn. They have to become dissatisfied with their current situation and then seek, something other than what they're being exposed to.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a very large task, especially in today's society. And I think what happens with media, people become so dependent with just hearing, the spill that's given. So if they turn on their television and it's funny how people pick and choose the networks. Because my wife, in the morning, on her way to work, she turns the television on the Fox 4, which is our local channel. And of course, I despise Fox. So I can't wait for her to get out the door and get her coffee, because I'm turning the doggone channel as fast as I can.
Mm-hmm.
From Fox. So it's almost like an information dumping ground, and you have to go through and pick and choose and find something worth substance, with some substance that you can use. And it's unfortunate, but I think we've all arrived at the conclusion that it's not done on accident. You keep the people basically in oblivion by putting all this information out there, and then people don't know what to believe. It's a sad state of affairs that the media that is supposed to represent a truth medium has basically sold out.
Right.
Their tools are by companies that own them.
Right. Let me do this real quick. Let me open up the lines. We have some callers out there. Is there any call out there who would like to join in the conversation tonight? We're talking about the media part 2, the good and bad, the negative and positive effects of the media. You can add anything else, local election, statewide election, and or the presidential election. Any call out there would like to engage in the conversation? I'll pause.
Hello.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Suzette. I live in California, Southern California.
Hey, how you doing?
And I'm doing all right. How are you guys tonight?
Doing fine. Thanks for calling in.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that I agree about the media being disservice to the American people. And yes, Trump is getting a lot of coverage, and it's a lot of negative coverage. They're not airing the negative coverage about the other candidate, Ms. Hillary Clinton. And that's a huge disservice because the polling numbers are showing that her favorables are not as high as they were before, but all the news isn't being reported either as far as what they're finding with the investigation. And I think the best thing that we can do for our children to help them disseminate the truthful information from the bad information or false information would be just to have them question everything. Don't take anything for, as far as what the news is saying. Take the time to research it and try and get to the source of the information, not a left-wing or a right-wing media source, but the horse's mouth, so to speak.
Right.
That's kind of what I do when I come up with somebody.
Right. Let me ask you this, caller. Do you use social media any?
I do.
Okay. And let me ask you this. When you're using social media, we've talked about earlier that when you share post information that may be false or inaccurate, you become a part of mainstream media, which is distorting the message and or potentially dividing the people. So when you're using social media, how do you, what's your version of utilizing social media to have the best effect regarding reaching the people?
No, right.
Go ahead.
Well, usually I approach it if there's something, a person that's highly inaccurate with what they're saying. I will post something from, let's say it had something to do with what Donald Trump had said about immigrants coming over, and you'll hear that he's a racist and so forth. So I'll take that portion of the speech and I'll get it and I'll post it so they can actually hear what he actually said. I will let them know that, I respect their opinion. I don't agree with it, but I respect it. And this is what I heard directly from the person, and they might want to listen to it themselves. And if they can show me otherwise, then I would be willing to listen. I have an open mind, and if I'm open to learning something new. So if you can tell me otherwise, as far as prove it, then go ahead and you've got me.
So you're one of those. So you're one of those listeners that you're open to other ideas and suggestions. You're not necessarily closed-minded, because we talked about earlier, there are many, regardless of what side they come from, that remain ignorant because they do not want to learn anything, or they believe in something and they don't care what somebody else is saying, whether you provide it by scientific information, polls, valid information that validates what you're saying is true. When you're faced with those types of people, are you able to maintain your composure? Do you walk away, or how? Because we're trying to make sure that everybody understands that the media, which whatever role you play, whether it's mainstream media, whether it's blogging, whether it's podcasting, whatever, you have an obligation to at least try to be balanced at least try to provide factual information and or bring on diverse groups of people such as what we have on here tonight that can give a compilation of information that you can take from the source and go out and utilize in your own way. Do you agree with that?
I generally, what ends up happening a lot of times is I end up starting a conversation with a person, and they end up coming back because I've asked them to go ahead and show me something. So they'll show me something, and generally it will be from a left-wing media source. But I'll read it and I'll say, well, they made some good points. However, and then I'll come back to something else.
Okay, call it.
And then in the end, we agree to disagree. But we've at least had conversation to where now I've planted a seed, I think.
Tell me, define to me what a left-wing media source would be. Give us a clarification on that.
I would say MSNBC, the Daily Caller, even the Hill to a point.
Dave Lamont, I know you're back out there now. You heard what the caller said. You agree or disagree with that?
I would generally agree. I always am an advocate for trying your best at getting multiple sources.
So how can MSNBC be left-leaning when they've supported Trump just as much as Fox News, if not as much as Fox News?
Well, I don't really think they're left-leaning.
Huh?
I don't think they're left-leaning.
Yeah, and I'm just trying to, because it's not trying to tie anybody into something, because, again, we accept any and all opinions that are out there because we want a combination of all walks of life. I agree with the caller that there's a left side and there's a right side, which we've basically identified that nowadays that's the trouble, because people are not just falling into liberals and conservatives. Nikki, left-leaning media outlets. You agree, disagree?
Oh, I agree.
You know, I think what I was thinking about the real disservice that's being done to people by the media. And rather than with this biased reporting, okay? I read a report today that said 34% of people, are going to tune into, they want mass media or they want media that favors their position. Okay? So they're looking for, if you're conservative, you're going to, tune into conservative media. But it's so biased that rather than kind of constructing a common sphere where different views can meet and negotiate, I think what they've done is they foster more division, and break the large mass audience down into small niche audiences, and what they are mostly interested in is strengthening their own position. So this reporting, this mass media bias that we have is actually kind of closing up dialogue between people.
I agree, because it's validating what people want to believe.
The opinions are so one-sided that the dialogue it's what we're doing tonight, Baron. We're discussing in this room for all opinions. There is not that in mass media at all. I mean, and so it's become so insular to its own point of view that discussion is being lost, and this ability to maybe reach each other with when we're carrying different opinions, different attitudes, different values. So it doesn't promote any discussion whatsoever. And people are reading it, and I think what's happened also is information is not being, given as factual news. You're being, a theme is picked up. You're being told by that pundit how to feel about that and what's a plausible stance you should take. If you really listen to it, that's what's happening.
Okay.
So independent thought is gone from it.
Okay. Nikki, very good comment. Let me make sure, because I know that there are others out there on the line, and I want to make sure that if we have any other caller that's out there before we conclude that would like to join in the conversation. Tonight we're talking about the media part 2. We talked about it in depth on Thursday night. on the 8 o'clock show, so we decided to do a continuation on the media, good or bad, negative output. We know that the media itself has changed, and is it a good or bad thing for America itself? The question that we ask is, are journalists doing a disservice when they report unfair, unbiased, and unbalanced information? We got any other caller that would like to join in? Okay, there being none, let me take this. Let me start with Dave Lamont. Dave, if we look at the media now in 2016, and we all pretty much have agreed, whether you're left-leaning, right-leaning, or whatever way you're leaning, if there's a disservice with the media as the way it stands now, and if a disservice exists, we know that a disservice will always produce a negative outcome. So if we look at these, the millennials, baby boomers are fading out. If we look at the millennials starting out with a message of disservice, how does that make the country look in 5 or 10 years when we continue to get a disservice, a lack of information? How can we change that, Dave Lamont, to make sure that people get the truth rather than all these falsehoods that's out there?
Oh, that's a question I'm still trying to learn myself.
Okay.
Again, you just basically have to try to be. I'd say you could try and be casual with some of it, and if you have like the uncle that's conservative or someone who's conservative in your life who's always talking about this kind of stuff, and you feel the need to correct them, just maybe have the source there ready. Do what you can to try and convince them, but in the end, just know that you may not be able to, and there's just got to be a point where you throw your hands up and say that I can't really teach you if you're not going to be willing to learn anything.
Oh, okay.
Nick. And sometimes we have to cut them off.
Right. Nikki, same question to you.
I have the hope of the young ones. I watched Jesse Williams' speech last night. And how many people did he reach last night? How many people did he touch last night? By calling things by their right name. And they were, he was powerful. I think Rashad Robinson at Color of Change. I think the young folks are just not buying it anymore. I don't think they're buying the state of the country. I mean, that's where my hope lies. I really want to be. I know it's a subject dear to all our hearts, but I was looking today at how black boys being gunned down on the street. I was looking at how the reporting goes with that. Okay, and there's a media historian called David Mindich. He's a press critic and a media historian. And he gave several examples. And from the time there's a shooting in the street of a black boy, okay, the narrative starts to become constructed. And I'm going to give you about 7 or 8 examples of different cities, different press, and how they reported it, from the LA Times to whatever. And how, when it's a white murder, how black victims are treated more harshly than white suspects. So just bear with me a sec. I really need to say it. White suspect. The headline is Suspect Brilliant but Social Misfit. This one killed 3 people and wounded 2. Comparison, black victim. This was in Montgomery. Montgomery's latest homicide victim had a history of narcotics abuse and run-ins with the law. Just bear with me on this one. White suspect. Son in Salem, Staten Island, the son in the Staten Island murders was brilliant, athletic, but his demons were the death of his parents. He killed his parents. Black victim. Trayvon Martin was suspended 5 times from school. White one. Oregon school shooting suspect fascinated with guns, but was a devoted Mormon, friends say. He shot 2 in himself. Black victim. we say Green Lakeland teen had been shot before, death possibly drug related. It goes on and on and on. These sources are from Omaha, the New York Daily News, the Los Angeles Times, Fox, and it's the way it's reported. And what I want to say about that, so we have probably right now at this time with Trump, our race relations are probably at the worst ever. Incidentally, CNN tries to argue that this that there weren't more deaths. Actually, there was just more reporting. Okay, that was CNN's take on all of this. But what it continues this narrative that's been around since super predators, and somehow the victim, the black victim, is to blame for his own death, and the white murderer is, there's some kind of social flaw that he has. He's a misfit, but he was great in school. I mean, it's when you look at all these different news sources, and this is being touted every day, all day. Where is the hope that we can reach some accord, some understanding, some real idea of what the hell's wrong with this country?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's obvious that there's a problem. Deb, same question to you.
Okay, can you repeat the question for me? I was still trying to get in on this gun thing in Missouri.
Okay, we're talking about, because we're trying to close this thing out. 2016, we know that the media is doing a disservice, and we know that the disservice produces a negative outcome. What is it that can be done to offset that, because we have these millennials that are coming up, and if they start out with a disservice, we know that won't produce a good yield. So how can we change the scope of things to make it to where the media goes back to doing what they should do, which is reporting fair information, balanced information, so individuals can walk away with something positive rather than a negative?
Well, okay, for one thing, I don't think as many millennials are watching the TV as people think they are. Mm-hmm. They're turning to other sources, first off, like you and Dave and a host of other ones, the Young Turks and different ones. And I think we need to keep them on that course and keep producing shows like this, and people like you guys that can keep showing them that this is not the norm. We have a history with MSM. We remember the days back when it was real reporting. Mm-hmm. And we can describe those days to them and make the contrast between then and what we are seeing now. One thing is, as far as politics goes, turn on CNN. I encourage people to turn, not CNN, C-SPAN. I encourage people to turn on C-SPAN and watch for yourself. Mm-hmm. Don't take somebody else's word for it. But I think that's the route we have to go. We just have to keep promoting these alternative sources of information, and we can reform it. I believe that we can reform reporting on a personal level if we gather together and make an effort to do so.
Right. Exactly. Aaron Hopkins, you ready to take a shot at that question?
Yes, sir. I think, of course, I agree with what's already been stated. One thing I would add is, with the alternative sources that are already present, at some point we would have to go into specific areas, because the news drops so many broad reports on a daily basis, and again, that's part of why there's so much, a lot of times I would say chaotic. In terms of what we try to find out, sometimes you don't even know what direction to go in. But if we could maybe be specific on some things, like Dave has his show deals kind of in specific areas, whether it's politics or whatnot. If we all would find and maybe share some specific alternatives, then we can all, it helps direct other people to those alternatives, because there's going to have to be alternatives. I don't see ever a change in what we see now in the media, because we've got to keep in mind these things are owned by companies who bought them to do just what they're doing, take control and manipulate what's being put out. So we have to, and if there's not an alternative, we have to create an alternative in whatever area of reporting that we're talking about. So, and again, agreeing with what Deb just said, hopefully we will continue to grow what we have and continue to help people understand, you don't have to keep plugging into the same socket, especially if you're not getting what you need out of that source.
Right.
Look for an alternative.
Right. Well, Aaron, I think it's fair to say that a good alternative, we got Debbie out of Missouri. We got Dave Lamont Screens from the Center, his own live broadcast out of Colorado. We got Nikki, who hails from another country, which is Scotland, by way of Las Vegas, Nevada. We got Vanessa, who hails out of Houston, Texas. Of course, you out of Dallas, Texas, and of course Paula out of Missouri as well. Now we have Corey Jackson that hails out of Baltimore, Maryland. We have black males, we have white females, we have different geographical areas, we have different economical backgrounds. So when you look at diversity, I'm not sure what else I can do. We have atheists that's on. We have believers that's on. We have some who may not be as strong as others. So what I'm trying to say is that when you're looking for the truths, you have a combination of different people. Again, it doesn't matter what area you look in. We've always, for the last 3 years, headed into 4 years, we've always tried to have that balance. I believe that diversity should be a part of America. I believe America is diverse. I feel that we have some people in America that are ignorant, and as a result of their ignorance, they try to suppress that diversity and create this thing called supremacy, whatever the case may be. And as long as we continue to do what we're doing and refuse to accept that, then it's not going to happen. Vanessa, I'm going to give you a shot to give you opportunity to take a shot at the question as well. Then we'll close the segment out. Vanessa Gazi.
Okay, I'm sorry. I took a phone call. The little girl I was telling you about it was in the hospital.
Okay.
Just called me. I'm sorry, I didn't.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. What we're talking about is we know that the media is doing a disservice, and if they're doing a disservice, then the millennials that's coming up now, they're starting out with a disservice or a lot of mistruths. So what is it that we can do to offset that, to bring the media back to the fold, which is to provide information that's balanced, that people can utilize for their own daily lives?
Well, what I wish we could do is actually have other media outlets. If we can have our own TV stations, our own, truth stations or whatever you want to call them, but the things that, we post on Facebook and everything, I think it does good, because a lot of people have come around that didn't, necessarily come around before. And a lot of people will tell me things like, oh, I didn't know that. This is the first time I ever heard of that. And there's a lot of things, it's the first time I ever heard it. So I think we can just keep doing what we're doing, and until we can get enough money to get a station going, and not be shut down because they don't want you to tell the truth about anything. But if we just keep calling out the media and addressing the fact that, you guys aren't, even if we write to them personally, I guess, and just tell them that we know that you're doing things that you shouldn't be doing. You're not reporting the news.
Right.
You're getting money. You're getting ratings, because everything. Like Fox News, they said that's not even a news station. They're not even considered a news station.
Mm-hmm.
But when you get people that watch it religiously and they're mesmerized by it. And sometimes I think they still doing because I don't know if you ever heard of the Brunswick Affair.
Mm-hmm.
You've heard of it?
Yeah, mm-hmm. I've heard of it. I've never, actually, tried to get involved in it, but I've heard of it. I've heard it mentioned before.
Yeah. I think we're having the Brunswick affair in high tech right now.
Mm-hmm.
But that was when they had those Brunswick TVs back in the 50s, I believe, and they were giving out subliminal messages: go buy eggs, buy milk, buy butter, buy bread, and people were actually doing it. With subliminal messages. And
Right.
it was a big thing, and I think they still do it.
Well, we know that Facebook allows cowards to have courage. We know that Facebook allows people who claim to be diverse in the public, it allows them to be racist or bigots behind the keyboards. We know that we have keyboard warriors and all those other types of attributes or adjectives that can describe one another. Again, our number one goal is really to just simply make a difference. And I believe that we're making a difference by bringing all of these topics to the forefront. We're talking about any and everything that's out there. There's not any question, any comment, or any topic that I will shy away from. We're talking. We're going to continue to talk. What we're going to do is say, Nikki, Dave, Vanessa, Aaron, Deb, and all of those that are out there listening, thanks for tuning in tonight. We talked about the media part 2. You can join us back here Thursday night at 8 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time. If you want to host your own show, you guys know, and anybody that's out there, you're welcome to do so. If you got a topic that you'd like for us to talk about, trust me, get it to us at thesmokingglasshour@gmail.com, and we will talk about it. You may not agree with how we talk about it, but we'll talk about it. And the goal is not for you to agree with us. The goal is for you to join in and let your voice be heard, because once again, our mantra has always been and will continue to be, our number one goal is to make a difference. Dave Lamont, good night. Nikki Bedrick, good night. Debbie Dilks, good night. Aaron Hopkins, good night. And Vanessa Gaza, good night. And all those other listeners that are out there, and those who may go back and listen to the archive, good night.
Good night, all. Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.